On this week's mailbag episode, your San Diego Padres sweep the Colorado Rockies. That's right, the Rockies that usually have this weird curse against them. They swept them, improving to MLB's best record across both leagues. Talking about the series featuring Michael King's complete game shutout, some highlights for Tatis Jr., and more, as well as answering some of your comments and questions, because it's the mailbag episode. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Monday, April 14th. As always, I'm your host of sometimes, occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. You can follow me on Twitter/X and Blue Sky at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO, as well as the old TikTok at Javios, JAVIOOS, if you like short form content and me being a rambling, annoying little fool, if you like that. It's really great stuff. Today's episode, guys, is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. In today's episode, guys, we got a little bit of a series to recap. We got a little bit of highlights to go over. And then we got a little bit of questions to go over. And it's all joy. And that's basically what this Padres season has been so far, right? After this weekend, improving to 13-3 on the year. The best record among all teams in all of Major League Baseball, right? 13 wins. The next closest, unfortunately, two teams in our division, the Giants and the Dodgers, as well as the Cubs, have been very good lately. The Mets are actually off to a hot start. But for the most part, the Padres have been unbelievable, right? This was it's not like some people who are tuning into this are going to be like, all right, relax. You swept the Rockies. Like, congratulations. And to that, I say you are somewhat correct. But even still, it is a nice series win for the Padres, not because you had some individual moments and some player highlights to go over that we're going to talk about, but also you were missing Jake Cronenworth and Jackson Merrill. And this is the Rockies, a team that they have really struggled against over the last, not even just 5 years, but frankly, the 21st century, dare I say, right? Like, they've really struggled against this team. And that says a lot, especially because as of recent, the Padres are actually lit now, as everybody has been following. If you've been a big everydayer on this podcast, things are good for Padres fans these days. But the Rockies have always been a little bit of a foil of theirs. And this series was amazing. Not only did they win every game, they dominated. The Rockies did not score a single run in the series. From Sarah Langs at Slangs on Sports on Twitter, there now have been 34 instances of a team shutting out its opponents for an entire series of 3+ games since 1901. The last one, it was Cleveland over Kansas City in August of 2017. And then, of course, we got the Padres, and then we got the Rockies. Which is crazy. The first one ever was, it's just it just shows how dominant they were, right? And Michael King, who we're going to talk about now, he was also unbelievable. And given that the Padres starting pitching has not been bad, but they haven't gotten necessarily the dominance that I think that they would have liked from Michael King and Dylan Cease to start the season. They haven't been, I mean, Dylan Cease has been much worse. King hasn't been horrible, but this was his, yes, I am here, right? Complete game shutout for him. And also from Sarah Langs, the Padres are the second team in MLB history to throw 6+ shutouts in their first team hold on, wow, I can't speak. The second team in MLB history to throw 6+ shutouts in their first 16 games of a season, joining the 1966 Cleveland Indians. Amazing stuff from the Padres. So, I love it. I mean, how can you not love it, right? This has just been a team that, so far has just really come together. There's a lot of good chemistry. And while, yes, there are some criticisms and there is a worry of, well, are they going to be able to hang on to every lead? Are they going to be able to get the hits at the right time from these bench players who, frankly, have not been all that? Yuli Gurriel, Jason Hayward, Brandon Lockridge, at least in terms of the offense. There still are questions, but this is still a team that has performed basically as well as you possibly could have hoped, given that not too long ago, we were all miserable about this team following the offseason of the Dodgers getting a whole bunch of new players, and then the Padres not signing anyone until the Nick Pivetta and Connor Joe and Jason Hayward, and then, of course, Jose Iglesias as well. But still, lots to get into, guys. So, yeah, let's get into it. Michael King, in this game, I told you he threw a complete game, specifically 9 innings, only 2 hits, 1 walk, and 8 strikeouts. Absolutely love to see it. Again, he has not been bad this season, but he hadn't given one of those dominant king performances necessarily that people really wanted, right? I would argue that he was great against the Guardians when he struck out 11 over 5 innings, but he's been a little bit And I think that opening day start still lurks in the back of people's minds, but it's really cool to see him get in there and just completely blank this Rockies team on a Sunday afternoon. He was great. 17 whiffs across all of his pitches. He was awesome. I mean, there's not really much else to say. You get to preserve the bullpen for this Cubs series, which I do think is important, right? I do think it's important because the Cubs have had one of the better teams in baseball. Like I said, they have 10 wins. They've actually been pretty good. I'm a little bit worried about them following the injury to Justin Steele, Tommy John surgery, but that offense is great. So you're going to need a lot of this Padres bullpen to step up. The bullpen that has been unbelievable, right? One of the best in Major League Baseball. And I think it's going to stay that way. So awesome stuff from them. And then also the offense in this game kind of all comes pretty early on, right? Like that's what's funny about this one. We knew this game was probably a W pretty early on. In the bottom of the first inning, you get an Oscar Gonzalez single, you get a Yuli Gurriel single. The Oscar Gonzalez one was actually like a little bit weaker hit, like kind of sneaked through the infield, and Gurriel's ball was actually hit a lot harder. Jose Iglesias gets a big double as well, bringing the score to 4-0. Then bottom of the fourth, bases loaded, no outs for Tatis. Unfortunately, maybe he was trying to do too much. Grounds into a double play. He gives them another extra run. And then Jason Hayward actually drives in the last run of the game. So a decent win. Decent run, I should say, for Jason Hayward this weekend, which we'll get into more. Just great stuff. Great stuff from this Padres offense just to get what was needed, right? Not necessarily what we would have dreamed of. We didn't get all those, giant, massive amounts of home runs from every player, but they showed up in a big way. And I think that that's what matters kind of the most. And of course, that wasn't the only game from this series. We also had Saturday and Friday, folks. And Saturday's game, let me tell you, folks, was a real pleasure because we got to see Kyle Hart bounce back in a big way. 6 innings in this one, only 1 hit allowed, 0 earned runs, 0 walks, which I think was most impressive, and 4 strikeouts. Look, here's the thing. Kyle Hart got absolutely demolished in his last start. Demolished by the Cubs. He was missing the strike zone, and every time he was in the strike zone, the Cubs were absolutely teeing off on him. But maybe it's because it was the Cubs, and maybe it was a little bit more of like a welcome back to Major League Baseball type of start. But he still looked pretty good all in all, I think, considering that. I think that he was pretty phenomenal. I really do. I think that the Padres, there's still some questions about what they're going to get out of Kyle Hart for the rest of the season, but it is nice to see that he bounced back. And if he can just be a guy that fills innings and is okay, then I'm excited, right? 3 whiffs on the sweeper. The sweeper is kind of like the pitch of his that seems to have the best stuff, and you saw more of it in this game. 27 sweepers thrown by Kyle Hart, then 16 fastballs, 16 sinkers, 8 changeups, 7 sliders. So maybe he's coming into a little bit of zone because he's been a little bit all over the place with the pitch mix in the early going. But Kyle Hart still needs to see more. But I still like what we've seen. We've basically seen 2 really good starts and then one of the worst starts by any starting pitcher this season. So we don't know exactly where to go. Maybe the 4th game will give us a little bit of a deeper dive into him. He's still one of the pitchers that I just cannot get a really good grip on. I know he has a little bit of a similar pitch mix to Michael King, which is always great, but I can't get like a full read on him just yet because the fastball isn't all that fast. He does give up some hard contact. And again, against a really good offense, he was terrible, but in his first, against Cleveland, which is an okay offense, he was also pretty good too. So again, I don't know where to go with that, but bullpen shuts down the rest of the way. Jeremiah Estrada, Jason Adam, and Robert Suarez coming in for the save. And let me just tell you, by the way, before we get into what happened, Fernando Tatis Jr. homered in this one, 444 feet. What an absolute king that this man is. 110.2 miles per hour off the bat. Just outstanding stuff. Truly. Just outstanding stuff. I will say that the hardest hit ball of the night, Ezequiel Tovar, this is Saturday's game again, of course, had an expected batting average of 720, and it ended up being a lineout. So shouts to Ezequiel Tovar getting a little bit robbed, dare I say. But Tatis, this was a series. We didn't know if he was going to be back. And I infamously on this podcast, because I know nothing, was talking about how I believed that Jake Cronenworth would be back and not Tatis, because I think they might have exercised more precaution with him. It was his shoulder, the surgically repaired shoulder, and we've just seen him get hurt a lot more. And it turns out Jake Cronenworth to the IL, by the way. Should mention that. The only bad thing that happened this weekend, unfortunately. But without Cronenworth and without Merrill, just really cool to see the Padres step up enough to get a series win against a team that they have struggled with. And I know that sounds weird, but we'll talk more about those struggles and Mr. Fernando Tatis Jr. in just 1 second, guys. But first, we got to talk about one of our sponsors. And do you know what sponsor that is? Oh, you know what it is. It's a wonderful sponsor, folks. And that sponsor, my good friends, is the good folks over at Wonderful Pistachios, folks. Because if you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, you just got to crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. It's one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I don't know why I struggle saying that combination of words, but alas, here we are. Maybe I need some pistachios to get my protein intake, right? But I also like their no shells variety. I like their honey roasted variety. Like, I just love that they have a couple different flavors for you. And personally, I like the no shells, but I like the satisfaction of the crack. I don't know what it is. It just makes me happy. So you can check that out, guys. It is fantastic. Whether you're dropping off the kids, whether you're heading to a workout, whether you just have a quick lunch break, whatever it is, pistachios are there for you. So get snackin' and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. And just like that, everybody, we are thriving and vibing into the segment number 2 of the Locked On Padres podcast for this fine Mailbag Monday. Don't worry, we're getting into the questions soon. Again, everydayers, you know me, but still, maybe if you're new here, go follow me on Twitter /X and Blue Sky at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO, and also check out me on TikTok at Javios, JAVIOOS. I know, incredible username, right? If you want more of my sports yapping, so go check that out, guys. So let's continue on. Tatis hits the home run in this game, and then that's basically it for the most part, except for Jason Heyward. Jason Heyward goes absolutely ballistic in this one with a home run, 108.9 miles per hour off the bat. Like an absolute shock. This wasn't like a lucky home run by Jason Heyward. Look, he's been what we kind of expected, right? Like, he's had a couple moments for this team. He's out there for defense, basically. But he's a vet, and sometimes veteran leadership matters, right? Actually, but this weekend, actually, there was a piece by Kevin Acey that kind of talked about, like, Martin Maldonado, and Kyle Hart talked about it, being like, I struggled in my start, and having him walk me through it was really helpful. Like, sometimes it matters to have some veteran leadership on a team. Now, the difference is that you got to be careful not to let that take over, and if the player is a negative, 5-win player or whatever the heck, and you're like, oh, but he's good in the locker room, it's like, yeah, well, he's costing us on the field. So at some point, that does matter. But in the case of Maldonado, who I was disappointed that Campuzano didn't make the team. But with Maldonado, I was more like, well, that might be an indictment on Luis Campuzano, despite being the creator of the Hive in the first place. In fairness to the Maldonado decision, I was like, well, he hasn't been good for a few years, Maldonado, but Campuzano is not exactly, Buster Posey in his prime. So I was like, that probably says more about him. And as a backup catcher, I was okay with that. I wasn't that mad. I was just really disappointed. I was just like, dang it, this really stinks. And maybe we'll see as the season goes on whether they're like, you know what, we just want Maldi in the back room and talking with our players, being a good veteran, and then Elias Diaz, who's actually been pretty good. He's been okay framing compared to what I think I expected, and has had a couple big hits for the team. He did well. But Jason Heyward, anyway, back to that. He hits a home run, 2-0 victory for the Padres. Robert Suarez comes into the game, and it gets a little bit scary for a second. By the way, gets a little bit scary. There's a couple singles that squeak through, doesn't have a pitch go his way, and then, 2 hits allowed. That's what ends up happening for the Padres here. But guess what? It did not matter because Fernando Tatis Jr. makes an awesome catch to rob Chris Bryant, who hit the ball 102.9 miles per hour. He's had an expected batting average of 770. Tatis with a leaping grab to win the game. Absolutely love it. Great weekend for Tatis. Not just with the power, but also the defense. And he also displayed that power on Friday. Don't you love that? Don't you love it? Coming off this shoulder scare, what does Tatis do in his very first at-bat? Of course he homers, everybody. Of course he did it. He's Tatis. One of the hardest hit balls, not just of the night, but of his season. 112.8 miles per hour off the bat. It was just Padres Palooza when it came to this. In terms of the hardest hit balls on Friday, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The top 8 hardest hit balls of the night all belong to Padres players. Some of them didn't land for hits. Manny Machado, Brandon Lockridge. A little bit surprising, especially on Lockridge's part. But overall, just an exceptional offensive display by the Padres. And look, they needed it because this game actually started off pretty slow with German Marquez of the Rockies, a player that I frankly think that they should have traded a long time ago. I think that they kind of missed their chance, but it was a Nick Pivetta start, and thankfully he bounced back like all the pitching did this weekend. He bounced back in a big, big way. I mentioned nobody gave up any runs. Well, that extends also to Mr. Nick Pivetta, who was ice, by the way, at points in this game. The fastball looked fantastic. 7 innings, 3 hits, no earned runs, only 1 walk, 10 strikeouts for our guy Nick Pivetta, right? 1.59 ERA on the year. Again, he struggled against the Cubs, which frankly, as we've already talked about, is looking a little bit more understandable given how good the Cubs offense has been, but still love to see that. 10 whiffs on his fastball. They were not touching that thing. Sweeper came in as well with 3 whiffs, and his sinker, 5 whiffs on 5 swings. Like, really good start from Nick Pivetta. Granted, it is the Rockies, but you still love to see that kind of bounce back. I am expecting a good season from Nick Pivetta. I already talked about bold prediction this year was that he would come in and be an all-star for the Padres. So we'll see how that kind of pans out. But it's basically a pitcher's duel at the beginning. And like I said, German Marquez, there was probably a point when the Rockies should have traded him, but there are the Rockies, so they didn't. And then they go off. Jose Iglesias gets a single to drive in Xander Bogaerts. Elias Diaz, mentioned him before, he gets a big single to drive in 2 to make it 3-0. Elias Diaz scores on a kind of like wild pitch sort of scenario. Manny Machado gets a double. Jose Iglesias then hits again. And then the bottom of 6th inning was the Tatis home run that I talked about. Just awesome stuff. And then Gavin Sheets, because why not? He hits a home run in this one as well. Kind of breaking a little bit of a mini slump for him, so that's good to see. I don't know how long the Gavin Sheets sort of experiment is going to go. He's kind of like a platoon DH guy, which is fine. I would just like a better side of the platoon against lefties. In my opinion, I think that they have someone out there that could potentially be a little bit better against lefties. But awesome weekend, right? If I had to summarize it, Tatis showed off the power. Love to see that, right? And you love to see that there's been like mechanical changes with him. And we've talked about this before on the show, but a lot less of a leg kick. I'm actually putting it up on the YouTube if you're watching there to give you a little bit of a, better example. He just looks so much more set whenever he's at the plate. Without that giant leg kick, it's like he doesn't need it. You're super talented. You got all the power in the world. You don't have to like press into things. And he's drawing walks. He's not swinging as much. He is actually striking out at a lower rate than he is walking right now. And maybe he's going to have himself a little bit of an Acuna season. He's got 6 steals on the season. Maybe he could be a 30-30 guy, and even better than Acuna because of the defense, right? Tatis made that great catch this weekend. Love to see that. So awesome series win for the Padres, man. I mean, what else is there to say? What else is there to say? There's not much else to say. I really don't think there is. It's great. We love it. We're happy. But folks, we still got a mailbag to get into. So why don't we do exactly that, folks? We're going to get into the mailbag, talking about some of your questions and comments. And you guys sent in a lot this week, by the way. Congratulations to you. You guys sent a lot of good stuff. And I'm excited to talk about it. Very much excited. Very, very, very much excited, guys. Let's start with the first question, which frankly, I didn't know exactly where to start. So we're going to start with just a simple one. And that is from my guy, Michael, I'm sorry, no, let me save that one actually. ADK7962, Dodgers fan here. This was an unreal performance by King. Thank you. I love it when Dodgers fans aren't weird on this channel. You know what I mean? And on the internet in general, but definitely on this channel. Yeah, Michael King looked awesome. Even though it was the Rockies, it's still complete game. Only the second complete game thrown by a pitcher in Major League Baseball so far this season. Love to see it. Very excited about him. I was at a level of 0% concerned. Let's see if 5% concerned about Michael King heading into the season. I'm actually a little bit more concerned about Dylan Cease right now, and I was a tiny bit about him before the season. But Michael King, I just don't think he's been a little bit underrated, frankly. Like, he doesn't get talked about a lot because we got to talk about the Padres losing Soto more and all that. But he's an ace, man. He's so freaking good, and I'm hoping that maybe they are able to extend him. We'll have to see. At Steven Krasner 5532 says, no Blackman. The Rockies curse is over. That's right, sir. I agree 100%. Charlie Blackman, in 192 career games against the Padres, had 36 home runs and an 884 OPS. Now, Charlie Blackman, great player, don't get me wrong. But some of those moments are not encapsulated by those career numbers because they happened when he wasn't necessarily all that good anymore. Like, he was still producing up against the Padres, right? Those last few years, if you guys for some reason have been following Charlie Blackman, like when he was just kind of on the team because they were like, whatever, we stink and we paid him a big deal, so he's going to play for us. But after retiring, last season. Maybe that is a sign of the end of the Rockies curse. But again, like those past few years, like since 2020, you guys talk about Charlie Blackmon a lot. WRC plus of 97, then 93, then 91, then 107, then 94. Like he wasn't very good in totality as a player. But for some, at the later end of his career, these last 5 years, but he still killed the Padres. So maybe that is a sign that now we are free from the Rockies curse. It's so funny. At Jeffrey Hammock 3557 said, we should still sweep the Rockies. They look awful. Even their best player at shortstop, Tovar, was booting ground balls. He should have had 3 errors last night in a 17-2 loss. And guess what? We did, sir. So congratulations to you. And then at Silas Robert Shaw, a lot of comments on the Rockies, guys. Again, if you're a first-time listener, it's real, the fear that Padres fans have of the Rockies. I'm not saying that we have it rough. That's not what I'm saying. It's just we genuinely fear this team a lot. And as he mentions, Padres have been terrible against the Rockies since they became a team, it feels like. At least since Petco got built. 5 winning seasons against the Rockies since 2000 only. 2 9-9 seasons. 17 losing seasons. 17! Pre-2001, it was more of a mixed bag, and we have only taken the season series more than 1 time in a row, back in 1997 to 1999. The Rockies have 9 winning seasons in their history, and the Padres during that time have 11. So, first of all, great stats by my guy Silas right here, man. Good stuff. That was some next-gen stuff right there. And what's really interesting about that is, I will say, just to defend the number a little bit, is that for a good amount of those years, the Padres weren't necessarily a great team, right? Like this, let's just be real. We've talked about this a lot on the show. It is one of the great stories in all of sports. I genuinely believe that. A true metamorphosis into what they are today, being a first-class, like, just roller coaster, theme park, just must-see TV kind of team. And that's very rare for a team with a history like the Padres, where they basically, they have Tony Gwynn, they have Trevor Hoffman. I understand that they've had some good players, Adrian Gonzalez in the early 2000s, but they're mostly just kind of a back of the mind kind of team, right? Like they've really haven't been all that relevant in the history of baseball, and they've changed that. So, yes, it's a little bit understandable the Rockies being better than them for the most part of this century since 2000. But what's crazy is still the number of winning seasons against them, because it's not like the Rockies have been perfect. And then the Padres, as of late, still struggle against them, right? This is not something I'm making up. I have to emphasize this. Since 2021, they are 31-33 against the Rockies. Obviously not counting this season. We are now finally above 500 in total, thanks to this series win over the weekend. But 8-11 against them in 2021, 9-10 against them in 2022, 9-4 in 2023, 5-8 in 2024. So what's funny is, really miserable season in 23, they played the Rockies well. Amazing season last year, they played them poorly, right? It's just been this constant, weird, very tiny little narrative, but it's just fun to talk about. And you know what else is fun to talk about, guys? The rest of your questions, which we'll be getting into in just a second. But first, one more sponsor. And that one more sponsor is our friends that you heard at the top of this podcast, our friends over at Monarch Money. Let me tell you guys, if you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did my money go? Well, between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, and food delivery, frankly, for me, at least in my case, that's where you can lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Plus, making money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB, locked on MLB, just to make it very clear for you guys. Want to make sure you get this discount for half off your first year. Go on and check it out. And just like that, everybody, we are back here on the Locked On Padres podcast one more time. Everydayers, go check us out, and go check me out on Twitter /X at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO, Twitter /X and Blue Sky there. And that's where you can also send me some questions. The same way my guy Rama Murdy did. He reached out on Blue Sky saying, "Hi, Javier, question for Monday's show. Is this the best run of pitching you have seen from the Padres? Are we finally getting good returns from Xander since he seems to be hitting well?" Bogaerts, let's start with that. because that's a little bit of an easier one. He has been really solid. Still does not have a home run yet, but the numbers and the overall raw stuff that I've been seeing, and if you just look on Baseball Savant, has been pretty good. His hard hit rate has gone up, and it has gone up in a way that's not like, oh boy, we're cooking. But in terms of just in general, this is a guy that had a 33.2% hard hit rate last year, which ranked really, really low, the 16th percentile, in fact. And so far this year, he's back up to a really reasonable degree. Yes, he's striking out a tiny bit more this year, but he's also walking to place to kind of what's it called, to balance it out. And I don't really mind if you're striking out at a 20% rate if you're walking more and you're hitting the ball harder. 45.5% hard hit rate this year. That is so far the hardest he's hit the ball since 2021. Now, he's not getting barrels, right? Like, he's not been elevating the ball as much as we would like, but he had a pretty good series. He had a couple doubles, right? Actually, he had one double. He went 2 for 4 in yesterday's game with a double. That, it didn't look as sexy as you might like it, but it bounced off the third baseman's glove. But it was still like he ripped that one. He's been hitting harder, right? 304 batting average, 385 on base. I just like to see a little bit more slug if we can get up there. Can he elevate the ball a little bit more? Can he lean into a little bit more power in that regard? And can he play some better defense? But bottom line is he looks a lot better. Right, he had that 3 for 5 game against the A's where he had a double as well. The 1 for 4 game with double. He's showing some slug, but I'd like to see more, especially because we kind of wanted to see more. But as of right now, has definitely not been. It looks like in the early going. Here's what I'll say: it doesn't look like this guy is going to be a dude who has like a 90 WRC plus, who plays like decent defense, and we have him for another 8 years. It looks like a guy that could have maybe a WRC plus of like 118. Is kind of what I'm thinking. He's currently sitting at an imposing, a dominating WRC plus of 122, right? So I think he can absolutely be a decent player. And again, hard hit and home runs is not the only thing that will tell us Xander is back, because he's never been that guy. He only had 1 year where he just had a crazy amount of power, and that was in 2019 with the juiced balls, by the way. So, like, that's not the big thing for him, but a little bit more elevation. If he's walking, though, and he's hitting the ball hard, what else can you ask for, man? Like, especially for a guy that we kind of all have agreed probably shouldn't have paid all that money to. But anyway, that was way too much on just one part of your question. Is this a dominating Padres pitching stretch? So far, yes. I think that since I've been covering the show, at least, this is the most dominant stretch. And it's not because of just the starting pitching, right? Like, we've had that year with Blake Snell winning his Cy Young. We had the year in 21, right, where they started off amazing with Darvish, with Musgrove. Like, they were killing it that year. Like, they've had some amazing pitching performances before, but it hasn't always come together. Like, hey, the Seth Lugo, Michael Wacha year, you just had those guys at the back end of your rotation. It was great on top of Blake Snell's Cy Young season. But so far this year, I think it's the combination of some really great pitching from Nick Pivetta, stepping up when kind of they needed him to. They needed a guy to step up. He has. And then Michael King, a couple dominant starts, including yesterday. Still winning on Dylan Cease, but the big thing is the bullpen. Bullpen has been outstanding. And if you don't believe me, well, let me tell you, neither does @Anonymous here. He says, far from the best pen in the league, maybe top 3. They may be 4th. Don't lie to your viewers. It's bad enough they are fans of the Padres. Laughing emoji. First of all, I doubt that this comment was made in good faith, but it's still worth pointing out. Look, I don't know if it'll stay this way, and I do like that you're laughing at, like, we might only have the 4th best bullpen in the league. Guess what? When I say one of the best bullpens in the league, that's what that means, dude. And currently they are first in ERA among all qualified bullpens in Major League Baseball. The Mets at a 1.8 ERA, Padres at 1.5, right? Like, they are significantly better than everybody else. Dodgers still very good too. I think they're around 5 or 6, but they did get blown up over the weekend because of that start against the Cubs, a 16-0 loss. But overall, bad faith comment, but still fun to use it to address the bullpen. Mr. at Uno So 95. I'm going to speed up on these questions, by the way. If Vasquez can locate his cutter, I think he will be a solid 3rd. I disagree with the idea that he could be a solid 3rd. I just have not seen that he's a 3. I think that's a little bit high above him. But can he be a great 5 and a pretty okay 4? That I'm getting a little bit convinced on. But as someone else points out, he's been good. But as Tim Owens too says, good overall, but I can't trust him. He walks too many people and has no put-away pitch. If he can strike out more people and limit the walks, he'd be solid. Props to him. He just needs to limit the walks. Yeah, he has not had a start so far where he's gotten more strikeouts than walks, which is really bad, which suggests that we could have an implosion kind of game coming at some point. But I do like that the hard hit is really low against him. Teams are still not making good contact, but I also agree with your point about not really a put away pitch. He has the cutter that's going in on those lefties that he struggled against last year. Really, really working against them. But he doesn't have that pitch that he can go to really get the strikeout. So we'll have to see how Randy does. But I mostly agree. What else we got here? We got some funny ones. Oh, at Hart JPG says, Javi, my man, breathe. Love the spark speaking on behalf of Soto. My second team is the Nationals, and when he went to my first love, Padres, I was winning from one team to another. I was sad when he left, but he deserves exactly what the market pays. Another connection to the Pods is I live less than 5 miles from Severna Park, Merrill's hometown. This referring to my kind of rant last week talking about I don't like Jackson Merrill taking shots at Juan Soto. I think it's weird for other people to act like, in baseball especially, that the player is being selfish for taking a lot of money. Like, there's no cap, guys. Like, it's actually the team. It's the team's fault if they spend a lot on a player and then don't want to spend on everybody else, because they can. And they probably will, because the Mets, Steve Cohen already has probably made back the amount of money he paid Juan Soto. Think about that, guys. Yeah, guys, not to get too political, rich people are really rich. You know what I mean? Some people are really, really rich, man. But more comments, guys. Also, from same person, RJPG. Bogey went off. Hopefully we see this version for the rest of the season. Lucky we had good pitching due to only scoring 2 runs. Granted, it's the A's, but Hayward had 2 hits. Shocking. And Gurriel hit decently hard. Or maybe I'm imagining things. Supposedly Tatis and Crony get back for Friday's game. We need them big time. Well, we did get Tatis. And Gurriel had, like, 1 hit at least that was, like, really mattered. So I appreciate that. Really good stuff. Love that. Love that very much. This next comment coming from at PhoenixAsh927, and it's a good one. The Padres have played some really bad teams, and they handle business like winners do. They needed 1 long winning streak in 2023 to get to the playoffs, and we've already done that this year. We're in a great position after 10% of the season. If we go 500 the rest of the year, we'd have 86 wins. 527 is 90. 595 is 100. Question, how many wins do you think will be needed for a third wild card, or even for the division? Shout out to one of the best managers I've ever seen. This entire organization thrives and vibes with Schilt's personality. Thank you for taking my calling card, and the record shows it. I agree, dude. I think that for the wild card, the third wild card, I think it could be 90, because I really do think that this NL is crazy. Like, I understand the D-backs are in 4th right now, but they're 9-7 and the offense looks legit. Like, they still look good. They're just regular good as compared to the rest of the division, where the Giants are getting huge walk-offs and winning games in fantastic fashion. Jung-Ho Lee is up there for them, and you still have the Dodgers too. And then the Cubs look pretty great too. And then you still have Mets, Braves, Phillies. So I think it might need like 90 wins. Like, that's kind of what I'm expecting. But I like what you point out there, that if they just go, that certain winning percentage, then they can really be up there. I don't know if they can win the division. I still just don't think that they have the overall numbers for that, and the talent it would you would need a lot of injuries, in my opinion, for the Dodgers. I just think that they have too much talent. Eventually the Betts, Freeman, Ohtani thing is going to get going. But to win the division, you probably need like 106 wins, something like that, right? Like, that's what I'm expecting. But overall, really good stuff. And unless the Phillies, Mets, or Braves are worse than we think, right? If one of those teams, which so far has been the Braves, maybe it won't be as bad as we thought. But again, we're going to have to see. Let me see here. What do we got here? At JN8R says, as a Padres fan who grew up in Orange County and currently lives in San Diego, it's absolutely insane to see you hop on the Squad Show. By the way, that's coming out again tomorrow. Squad Show, a little bit of general baseball talk, which is a lot of fun, and I think you guys will enjoy it. So you hop on the Squad Show, and you, of all people, immediately slander the Angels for keeping Mike. For sure the Dodgers, crosstown rival, maybe the Giants, World Series history, and even the Guardians, lost to Angels in recent series. But the Padres guy, whose team draws so many parallels to the Angels, is going to act like the Padres weren't as bad before 2019 and didn't have a Padre for life. Hall of Famer that has just as many rings as Mike. Hopefully you can find a minute in your next video to apologize for how cold of a take that was. I love when people are like, you need to apologize for a take. Like, as if like I dropped a slur. You know what I mean? Like, you need to issue an apology for that take. Especially a take that is totally true, by the way. Look, I mean, I was joking around on that, and basically I said it's rude for the Angels to convince us that they might be good. Point to me when the Angels have been good recently. Look, I'm upset at the Angels, and I'm not saying the Padres have been any better, but my thing is, yeah, 2019 happened and they started spending and got good. The Angels have been trying to spend and put a good team around Mike Trout for like 15 years. right? That's the difference. The Padres last 5 years, and guess what? They've made the playoffs like multiple times in 2020, 2022, and 2024. The Angels made it once. So that is completely different. Am I hating on the Angels as an organization overall in like their grand history? Of course, they're more relevant than the Padres all time, right? But in general, they have robbed us of Mike Trout. Like, they have kept this guy, and they've made nothing but dumb decision after dumb decision. And you look at them as a whole, by the way. Preller, he gets aggressive. The Angels traded for Lucas Giolito at the deadline a couple years ago. They didn't trade Shohei Ohtani when they should have. They didn't trade Mike Trout when they should have. And as a result, they fell apart. All they do is fall apart over these past few years. So I'm making fun of the Angels. I don't want to make fun of the fan base, but I think you're a little bit crazy to act like I can't talk about this. I don't understand what you're saying. It's actually makes a lot of sense. Look, I'll root for them against the Dodgers, obviously, but no, there's actually not too many parallels between the Padres and Angels. The Padres have been much more recent. Literally, since like Mike Trout came into the league, they've been in the playoffs one time, guys. And unlike our division, y'all don't have the Dodgers to worry about. You know? Like, you had the Mariners and the Rangers. You know how bad they've been over the past few years? So come on now. But at Tony Sue, he leaves some comments. Get used to low scoring and winning one-run games this year. This is probably the best or the first Prowler team ever built primarily on pitching and defense. The offense isn't completely forgotten, but emphasizes veteran experience over Prowler's usual high upside and talent over experience. This is the way of all baseball teams, how they were constructed until the Boston Red Sox teams of the early and mid-2010s, followed by the Nationals that emphasize hitting and slugging over pitching and defense. This back-to-the-future approach might be Preller's most successful team ever if no one gets traded and everyone improves, as I think they will over the year. I somewhat disagree on that. Go look up the Yankees. 2009 Yankees, 2008 Phillies. Like, a lot of teams have had really good offenses before, and then a couple ace pitchers, right? Like, that's usually how it breaks down. Run prevention is not always the thing, and veteran stuff too. The Padres have a lot of stars, and I think they're doing well, but I understand what you're saying. But you didn't understand what I was saying. He says, can't agree with Dylan Cease analysis. For a pitcher that normally throws more than 60% of fastballs, he didn't throw a single one the first 2 innings and started throwing 4-seamers and sinkers only towards the end of the third, when it was more than obvious his other stuff wasn't working at all, referring to the A's start. The question that has to be asked is why this pitch selection. Although his slider was a little bit effective, I consider it far less effective than the fastball when it's working. Commentators have been blaming control issues, but I don't necessarily agree. A lot of times a pitcher can't always paint the corners and has to rely on his stuff. And lastly, when Cease did finally throw fastballs, he only got up to about 95 miles per hour, which is considerably below his usual 98 miles per hour. Tony Sue coming with the heat. He's a hater. He's hating on our boy Dylan. You know, maybe this is why. Maybe he read this comment, and that's why he decided to get that shave. But continuing onward from the comment, because the entire pitching starting staff has been suffering first inning blues, I think Niebla needs to ask whether there is a common cause to not being fully prepared to throw that first inning. Maybe pitchers are not fully warming up so as to last more innings. Maybe these ballparks that play smaller are messing with minds. Maybe arms are tired. Maybe it's something else. Well, first of all, I don't know what my take on Dylan Cease was that you're referring to. I don't know what exactly you are pointing out that you disagree with Dylan Cease. Second of all, some of the things I think you said are a little bit not accurate, right? Dylan Cease is not a 98 mile per hour guy. He's not Roki Sasaki. He's not Hunter Green. He's not Paul Skeens, right? 96.5 miles per hour on average for his fastball velocity this year. Last year, it was 96.9. So there's not like a dip in velocity going on right now, right? He's still throwing hard. Now, has he had some moments where he can throw harder? Sure, right? But overall, I haven't seen like a massive dip to freak out about. And in general, I don't understand what is it that that's kind of like freaking you out. Like, I don't know what I said about him. And also, by the way, yeah, his slider is his best pitch. This has been a thing for a while. Last year, opponents only hit 159 against it. It carried a 44% whiff rate. His fastball, 20% whiff rate. But it was still very good, don't get me wrong. But his slider is very clearly the put-away pitch and the awesome thing that he can throw. And if you want to go to 2023, same thing. His slider, only 216 batting average against it, 273 against his fastball. So, like, so far this year, his fastball is getting killed, and they're not hitting his slider, which he's been throwing the most, only 172 batting average against. So I don't know exactly what you're disagreeing against. My thing is just I think Dylan Cease can have some blow-ups. And it wouldn't surprise me if this year he drops with a 3.7 ERA. It It wouldn't shock me. It really wouldn't, because he just has a little bit of inconsistency, and I think he's just trying to find a third pitch he can rely on more, because if you look at the numbers on his usual third pitch, his knuckle curve, not that great, and you saw in the playoffs what happened there. So I don't know what my take was. If anyone can let me know what my take was about Dylan Cease that you disagree with, I'm worried. You know what I mean? I'm worried, but I'm not freaking out, because bottom line, it's too early. And by the way, shout out Tony Sue. He was freaking out over Michael King a couple weeks ago. So my guy, let's give it a second. You know what I mean? But last comment, and I'm really excited about this one. This is a banger of a mailbag question that I know a lot of people want to know about, from Mr. at Mike Troy Shorey. He says, I have heard rumors of the Padres trading for Sandy Alcantara. What do you think of this trade, and do you think it's possible that it can happen? My first impression of this would be that would be rad, right? Like, that would be awesome. I actually don't think that this Padres team is suffering in the starting pitching department right now. Could it be better? Of course, like all teams. And would it be a dream scenario? Of course it would be. Sandy Alcantara is a Cy Young winning pitcher for a reason. He is an innings eater. He does not give up all that much hard contact. Like, he's very, very good. And I'd love to see it. And he's a popular, famous pitcher, and all popular, famous players that are very good, AJ Preller is looking in, right? Like, he's a blockbuster type move guy. But you have to keep in mind, there are other teams that need starting pitching, dare I say even worse, considering that Randy Vasquez has been okay, that we've had good stuff from Kyle Hart. We don't even have Yu Darvish back, and then you have the Cease King two-headed Hydra thing going on there. But the big thing for me for why I would be a little bit less optimistic about this is because everyone's going to want him because he only has a 5-year, $56 million deal. That is one of the biggest discounts on any player in all of Major League Baseball right now. And this deal, by the way, happened before he ended up getting his Cy Young. This guy's awesome. He's becoming an unrestricted free agent after the 2027 season, where he gets paid $21 million. But this contract's still $17 million a year. It's a little bit more pricey, right? But the fact that you don't have him forever, I think that it's so team friendly, right? So there's a lot of teams going to be after him. The Cubs, they just lost Justin Steele, and they have a better farm system than the Padres do. So if they were able to swing this, they're probably going to have to give up like an Ethan Salas if they want to get Sandy, which, I mean, if you're going to give up Ethan Salas, that's a pretty decent player to trade for. But overall, that is not something I would want to do as the Padres, because their farm system is it's really barren right now. And for a reason. They've made a lot of trades over the past few years, and some good, some bad. But overall, I just don't see that. I think that this is a team that actually just needs to refine around the edges, go out, and as I tweeted about yesterday, go out and get Ryan Mountcastle to rake against lefties. He has not gotten as much of a full playing time as I think other teams might allow for him. So Ryan Mountcastle, that might not cost anything. Also on the Marlins, Jesus Sanchez, decent WRC plus. He can play a better left field potentially than maybe what we're getting here with Jason Hayward, whatever kind of combination they want to use. Get another DH bat to put with Gavin Sheets, and then maybe you trade for a pitcher that just doesn't cost nearly as much. Maybe someone who can throw innings. But overall, I just think Sandy's a little bit too pricey. I could be wrong. I think he's a little too pricey. I think other teams are going to be going after him harder, and I think other teams just have more ammo to be able to make that trade than the Padres do, as currently constructed. But folks, with that last question, that about does it for today's edition of the Locked On Padres podcast. The only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. Ends up going a little bit long on this one. I always forget how long I end up spending talking about the questions. But you know what? It's Mailbag Monday. I like giving you guys a nice chunky episode. And if you want to be featured on this one, remember, one more time, reach out to me at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO, and at LO_Padres as well. Twitter/X Blue Sky. You'll be able to find it in all the links in the episode description. And also leave comments on the YouTube. I usually scan those Sunday night or so. So, yeah. What can I say, guys? Padres doing good. Look forward to tomorrow's Locked On MLB Squad Show, talking about some general baseball stuff, and then we'll be recapping 2 Cubs games for you guys on the Wednesday episode, it should be. So until that next time, stay safe, and of course, stay faithful. My Friar Faithful homies, take care.